All right, you know what? Seeing as the uneducated kids among you, because you're all too young, clearly. I'm just starting to get too old, maybe. Seeing as the uneducated, the uninformed amongst you do not know what that background is and seem to think it's just China, screw it. You can have some Chinese gameplay. Here you go. We've got 3DB versus Official KW, a.k.a. Marine Lord, in a China-on-China battle between two talented and capable StarCraft players, right? Marine Lord, of course, everyone knows that he's a StarCraft player. A lot of people maybe don't realize 3DB came from that background. $10,000 earnings, a quarter of that this year alone. Definitely a rising star, very young and very capable. And we've seen him multiple times just completely trounce his opponents on Age of Empires 4. And we've definitely seen a lot on Confluence. But usually it's with the Delhi. So let's see how he does when you stick him on China. I will say this so far, out of the games I've watched from 3DB, he's incredibly aggressive on his openings with China. I do look forward to seeing how he does against Marine Lord, a player that tends to read these situations quite well, understands the maps, and also the microplay is going to be an interesting part in the early fights if they occur. We'll see how this opens. Opener-wise, it looks like Marine Lord only has one scout compared to 3DB with a two. 3DB absolutely loves this two-scout opening, and I have to agree that it's proven superior in so many situations, right? Not only does it allow you to get early sheep if need be, but it also allows you to maintain more vision over your opponent, which is the important detail. Vision genuinely wins more games than it loses. I mean, to put it a better way, you will win more games if you engage actively with the concept of vision, right? And you can see now, one scout moving out here, another one over here. Meanwhile, Marine Lord is playing off one. Yes, you're sacrificing one villager, I agree, but I think it's even easier to sacrifice one villager on water hybrid maps, right? Even if you're putting yourself slightly behind your opponent's economy, it's the fact that if you choose to engage early, you will have better info, right? You'll be able to pivot, you'll be able to counter early. More importantly, if you actually scout out better than your opponent, you can not only see if they're coming with a rush play, but you can also read better whether you could go for a rush play compared to your opponent. And I think that's why I'm a very big fan of this double scout opener. And keep in mind that there could be a teeter-totter in terms of villager count anyway. Depends how much each of them prioritize Imperial officials and when. But yeah, opener-wise, looks like 3DB, he has got less people on the wood to open this right now. Fishing ships are even on the numbers. I think 3DB, no, they were actually on the dot. Both of them on the dot. Yeah, so they are very even on the fishing economy. But of course, this could mean 3DB is slightly delayed on the tech up. And the reason this could be important is in a mirror-mirror matchup, those few extra seconds could be the difference between an extra archership, right? Which means that with additional junk, maybe Marine Lord pushes you off the water first. We'll have to see, though. Be kind of crazy to imagine 3DB losing on Confluence, because I think every time I've watched this guy so far, he has successfully stomped his opponent on the Confluence. But this time, of course, you know, this is the highest rank opponent I think I've seen him go up against on this map. Because remember, Marine Lord, he's currently sitting in 5th on his official account and 6th on this one on the official KW at 1900 ELO and 1883 respective. And then, of course, 3DB. 3DB is floating around the 20 mark a lot of the time. He's sunk a little bit in the last day or two, down to 27th with 1756 ELO. And up to 545 games played. I do love the guys for just not reacting to the meta of having a Smurf, right? Have a Smurf, have that top 100, top 50 to get your seedings in tournaments. He just comes in and does it on his main. And as far as I'm aware, he doesn't have a Smurf. I think he just started playing later than everyone else because he's been grinding, right? I think 3DB on average has been putting in probably 8 to 12 games at least a day, right? And he definitely started a few weeks after everyone else. So I remember when I first saw this guy start appearing on the leaderboards, I was like, who the hell is this? Is this a Smurf? Which is kind of my feeling most times when I look at the leaderboard right now. I mean, if you needed proof of what I'm talking about, guys, let's have a look at the leaderboard. So we know BC's a main. We know Lucifron, that's his main. Jalifbur, I'm pretty sure that's a Smurf. Official Anti-KW is a Smurf. Marine Lord is his main. Official KW is Marine Lord Smurf. Vortex is the main. The Muslim is the main. Zamato is Vortex's Smurf. Do you see where I'm going with this? Undone Soup is a Smurf. Genghis Khan is almost definitely a Smurf. Trebuchet, I'm pretty sure, was a Smurf. In fact, was that? I think that might have been Viper's one. It just goes on. There's just so many Smurf. Fortesk as well. Anaconda's the one I think is Viper's Smurf. It's just kind of crazy. Some of the players actually kind of have been keeping their smurfing quiet. Like, one cool thing, and I respect his grind, is I'm almost certain Serral has been grinding the crap out of Age of Empires, but you haven't seen him playing for several days now, right? He just keeps it on the low. He keeps it silent. And he just keeps grinding in the background. And I wouldn't be surprised if the first big tournament we see Serral come in and just smash a lot of the competition. Apparently, he has been saying on his streams that he feels like he let himself slip a bit in StarCraft, and he's looking to get back on top of the game. Because for those who don't know who Serral is, if you know Marine Lord and you don't know Serral, then like just take a slightly deeper look at the StarCraft scene. Because for reference, Marine Lord, he's small fish compared to Serral. Serral is considered in the StarCraft world to be one of the few players good enough to compete with the Koreans, right? It's what we call the foreigners in StarCraft. Marine Lord is definitely up there, by the way. I mean, if I was to give you his official ranking, Marine Lord, if we look at the leaderboards for SC2, I think he was ranked in the top 10, right, for the region? Yeah, so he got 8th overall in the EU ranking recently. But Serral's in first for reference, right? But anyway, let's stop thinking about StarCraft, stop thinking about his rankings. Let's focus on what's been happening in these openings. Not too much deviation, which is why we didn't talk about it, right? They've both been spamming out fishing boats, and they're both looking to spam out the landmarks in similar locations. You can see how they're both moving towards this choke point in the center, right? Because that turn point is going to be more time in which ships are in range of the Barb and the Sun. And as a result, they should be both well protected. I do prefer 3DBs because it's stationed right at the center, right? So he has more control. He has more kind of wines that are directly under his influence compared to Marine Lord, who didn't have a choice courtesy of this giant tree line in the way. And he's already walling up. So Marine Lord a little bit paranoid that 3DB might try and jump him on land. And 3DB not really showing any intent to do so. I don't expect either of them to build a military force on land, by the way, until this castle. Oh, look at this. So 3DB moved a villager out here. This is an interesting choice. And the scout battle is going to be won by 3DB. Damn, the way he's clubbing him down so quickly here. The villager should end up losing as well. So villager and scout is going to survive for 3DB. And tech cups are going to be mirrored. And more importantly, 3DB keeps this open, right? So now Marine Lord has to be a bit paranoid. Not only is he going to lose a villager, but he'll probably have to send a second one over to fix this wall. Because now he's paranoid his opponent might be coming in and land. And this comes back to the vision game, right? Marine Lord is playing blind. Look at his vision right now on the minimap. He barely sees anything. Meanwhile, 3DB continues the aggression with villager and scout on both sides here towards the crossings. And he's walling up now. So he has the same intent as his opponent, but you see the reason that Marine Lord is blocking this is he doesn't want to play on 3DB's terms. That's the importance of doing this, right? He understands that, yes, I know I want to be walled in, but at any point, 3DB, if he chooses, can come through this wall. And that's not what Marine Lord wants. And now another scout coming out. So Marine Lord forced to invest in another one at this stage of the game. Trying to snipe out this fishing boat is just not going to work, by the way. Not with the dock here. If there wasn't a second dock, yeah, this would be a solid move, but right now, that's actually a concern, is the fact that your opponent has built 2 docks, you're still on 1. Which means he can potentially outscale you, and there we go. There's the dock being dropped over here. So 3DB does get one down in the south. Really nice placement, because remember that this Barbican covers all this area. And it's an efficient placement, right? It's actually much further apart compared to the 2 from Marine Lord, which means that he's going to be able to get quicker drop-offs on these more split areas of fish. Question is, both of them being teched up, is either of them going to build into junks? Because so far, it doesn't look like it. They're both just playing the exact same mirror, right? Like, they're not actually getting that aggressive outside of the scouts and villagers attacking each other. So kind of peculiar to watch. And he didn't stop the construction in the north. Look at this, 3DB. He gets the palisade wall down, and he's plopping down an outpost as well. This is going to deny this source of food later on for Marine Lord as he starts to drain the area immediately around where his docks are dropped. And it's also, more importantly, going to prevent his opponent from expanding. And this could open 3DB to expand to other islands. I would love to see both players engage with this. Like, you play China, you could go for TCs, and you can build them quicker. Multi-islands is a very good idea here. But instead, it looks like Marine Lord going for the tech up. 3DB, however, is not ready. Once again, a little bit of scout and scout. Is going to lose that scout, though. It's a frustrating situation. And it looks like 3DB is trying to rectify his mistakes, right? He didn't scale correctly. I think he had some people on land still, which he still does, have people working on food, right? When he should have just had it all switched over to gold and wood and allowed the fishing fleet to take over from here. And you can see it in the surplus. Look at the difference. Marine Lord, he spent a bunch of his, but 3DB has an absurd amount of surplus food, not enough gold. And yeah, he slowed himself down more, right? Because he went for specialized picks. definitely something we've been seeing between a lot of players. Kind of difference is some of these players are actively engaging with a lot of the economy upgrades, and other ones are choosing to completely ignore them. So you can see, for comparison, like, Marine Lord hasn't bothered at all. I think Marine Lord has also been better at gathering on the tax front, despite the fact that FreeDB now has 4 Imperial officials. He was a little bit slower in the early game, which means that he's still not ready for a tech up. And yeah, he finally builds a market. This should have been done sooner, by the way. This would have been a great play to actually catch up if you'd done it instantly, but now you're going to be playing behind your opponent. Question is whether Marine Lord wants to engage with Castle immediately. Because remember, it's not what it used to be. It's not about the Springald spam. If you don't have an army in front of you, it's going to be worthless. So I don't expect him to rush into towards Springalds. I expect him to build a front line first and then get 2 or 3 clock towers. Clock tower Nester Bees, rather. Oh, and he's spotted out moving onto the stone here. 2 villages should be able to hold their own against the scout. But remember, the damage to the villages is permanent. The damage to the scout is not, right? You heal over time with scouts. It's a little bit frustrating because he really wants to get his hands on the stone. Oh, and the boom ship! Marine Lord, he's punishing FreeDB fully for being so greedy and so slow on the tech up. And Marine Lord has no way to defend himself. Oh, sorry, FreeDB rather has no way to defend himself because he never went into the junk ships. And now he's retreating. But this explosive junks moved past the fort now, right? And he'll move straight in. Sinks 2 more. Damage on the dock. Junks are now being built, but this is the price you pay for not engaging on the water earlier, right? He didn't think he could actually pressure in because, understandably, you're against the Barbican Sun, right? So if you push underneath it and the fixture ships retreat, it becomes wonky to move past. But after you see your opponent gets castle before you, for you to not bother to put out any defenses on the sea at all is an incredibly greedy play and is appropriately punished by Marine Lord. Now, FreeDB. Bonus damage, remember, against the explosive junks, so should be able to sink it quickly. Whoa, not before it booms, though. And that is a lot of damage. You need 2 or 3 of these, right? 2 or 3, and you'll get rid of it before it gets in range. Otherwise, you're just going to take heavy casualties on the waterfront. And now the scout's back, and he's sniping out villages. Oh, this is so painful. An outpost would fix this, but he doesn't want to slow down. FreeDB understands how uncomfortable his situation in this game is right now, right? So he needs to get his hands on an extra TC immediately. And in the meantime, go for the Imperial Academy. So he's going to get that quicker production speed. Realizing that the double TC drop is going to be slowed down, he needs to scale in that regard. And he's also paranoid that his opponent might be doing the same. However, we see what Marine Lord is doing. Marine Lord doesn't care about the villager count. He's actually going in for the Yuan Dynasty, right? Which is a huge booster, courtesy of not only getting access to these Fire Lancers, but also the 15% additional movement speed is just an insane buffer that, in my opinion, should not exist at the Castle Age level. If anything, I think these two should switch. I feel like the 10% health is actually less impressive than the 15% movement speed on all your military units and villages, etc. So I would rather see these bonuses switched around. Some people might disagree. I do think it's kind of more balanced, though. Oh, boom ship out again. Junk's barely alive. And a dock going down over here. So he guards himself on the walls. He gets another dock down. That's his, what, 3rd? Yeah, 3rd dock. And I believe FreeDB is still on 2. 2 docks. And starting to suffer a bit. I want to know what this double marketplace was about. I was getting paranoid that FreeDB was a filthy exploiter, but I doubt it. I don't think that's what it's about. I'm curious to know why he dropped 2 marketplaces, though. Maybe a misclick? Feels like it might have been a misclick. We'll see. It could be that he was planning to engage with trade. That seems like a wonky idea, though, if that was the case. Like, you don't have land guarded at all, right? You've both played heavily into sea. You could argue that that means that land is open for trade. But at this stage of the game, it won't be for long. So I don't think that's what it was about. I think it was just a misclick. And now the Fire Lancers with the transport ship. I don't see enough players engaging with transport ships. It always makes me sad. I'm not surprised that it's actually a Terran StarCraft player that's starting to engage with transport ships. Just thinking about most of the high-level StarCraft gameplay I've watched for Terrans, and it always comes down to Medivacs filled with Marines, right? So this is kind of fitting. And this Raid Force could do big damage, right? It's going to gap close so quickly. It cuts the time to move across this map in half if you think about it. Because you have to go past these shallow waters instead, right? And it's such a long run to get to these forts. So just being able to cut that distance is a huge deal. The problem is your opponent is now building explosive junk, so it might not be as easy as it's said done. Oh, and the fishing economy. Marine Lord, not backing away in time. Only 3, though. I think FreeDB definitely could have got more there if he went a little bit deeper. He definitely had time. But Marine Lord, you notice he didn't prioritize the fishing vessels. He actually prioritized getting the units out of the boat and then moving them away just in case he loses a transport ship. Really smart heads-up play. Because in that situation, you could lose a lot more. So he does kind of stem the casualties. And okay, so for the moment, he's moving the Fire Lancers over here. Interesting. I don't know if he's paranoid about an expansion. Like, obviously, he's moving past the defenses, right? He's trying to not show his hand. But because he sees the boom ships, he's not able to get closer than this. So, not being greedy at all. And the wall attempt is going to net 3DB Scout. No. Just too long. And the cool thing about this is 3DB knows about the Scout. He doesn't know about this raiding. But look at the timing on this. 3DB gets up the walls just in time. And it didn't come a moment sooner. Perfectly timed there. Otherwise, he would have been in deep trouble there with the push through from the Fire Lancers. Could have ran Anarchy. Because remember, if you move through all these stealth forests, of which there are a lot on this Confluence map, you'll be able to reach certain eco lines. And if you splash damage in with these Fire Lancers' initial charge with the AoE, you could annihilate several villages in the blink of an eye, even with just 4 of these Fire Lancers. Now, more of those Fire Lancers coming up to 14. 3DB, has he been building? No, he goes a different route. He's going for the Palace Guard. Interesting play, especially if this game goes late enough that you're thinking about not Ming Dynasty, but like going into the Yuan Dynasty, right? The extra 15% movement speed on the Palace Guard puts them up close to the speed of a heavy cavalry unit for half the price, right? Because they're right now at 1.38. You add on an additional, it brings them like, what, 1.5 something? 1.52, I think it is. 1.56, actually, I think. We'll probably see that soon, though. And they're decent against the Fire Lancers, right? They don't get bonus damage, but they just hit hard, and they don't take much damage against the light melee cavalry. Now the wrap in. He's going to have those charge attacks ready. You need to be very careful. 3DB has a lot of economy back here. And he never researched tech tiles, remember. Never went for a second TC. He's stuck on the Song Dynasty still. And we'll start to garrison the villages quickly. So it gets most of them out of harm's way. Really important detail. And now we see the Spearman come now. So 3DB, Palace Guard is still good to build, but you need to have a composition. And it's just in time that he's starting to build these. Look at this force coming in. Marine Lord snuck the rest over. Remember, it doesn't take them long to get through these walls because of that extra siege damage. And they charge in. Oh, the damage on the villager line. That's what, 5, 6, maybe 7? Marine Lord evening up the number because 3DB was moving ahead, remember, because he's on Song Dynasty. Meanwhile, Marine Lord skipped past that. He went for these units, so he doesn't have access to that 30% reduction on villager production speed, courtesy of skipping past Song Dynasty. Just trying to mirror him as he moves around the base here. So many spearmen coming out, though. He's countering this somewhat, but he has to be worried about the incoming new forces. That could make this scary, especially since he hasn't rebuilt the points. I do like this, though. I like the Palisades. Just trying to funnel his opponent around, understanding that he still has mobility on his side, right? And there's not much you can do about that right now, right? Like, you're up against that extra 15% speed on these Fire Lancers, put him at 1.72. It'd be different if you went for Yuan, but I just don't see 3DB going for Yuan until he has around 100 effective economy. Trying to cut him off again. You do gap close fairly well, remember. Once you get into charge formation with the Spearmen, you see they move at 1.56, so they're almost quick enough to catch. Here we go again. Marine Lord straight in on the wood line. Big dent there. Was that 6 villages taken out? And it will just keep moving before you can be sniped down by the Spearman. And even more villages might fall at this rate. So he needs to buy time for the recharge on the splash damage, and then he can go again. But right now, 3DB is not really setting any sort of pace. He's losing huge amounts of his economy, and he's being pushed back slowly but surely, right? Even on the fishing front, this doesn't feel good. He's outnumbered. There's also these explosive junks to worry about. His opponent is countering him out at every turn. Marine Lord, just on a macro level as well as a micro level, just outdoing 3DB at this stage. And they're in again. Decent splash damage. Let's get more dangerous, right? You just drained this gold vein, so you have to move these villages out to more dangerous lines, right? Stone line or gold line, wherever it is. It's not going to be close to your base anymore. If anything, 3DB needs to get rid of his initial forces and get to these choke points. He needs to guard them better. He has started a stone wall, but this is way too late. This needed to be happening sooner. I think this delay cost him an extra 10 villages past what it should have. And it might still cost him more. Looks like he will be able to put an end to the last of the Fire Lancers. I say that. 3 of them still alive. But for the most, it has been cut down. The problem is, look at the control that's being lost. There's the rest of his fishing fleet now gone. 3DB. Because he had to invest so much on the land, attention, and resources, he didn't keep up military production on the sea. And although he does sink some ships down here and return the favor of taking out a lot of that fishing economy, he's starting to suffer on the front, and that's why he's forced himself back here. So this is still hidden. And it's so much to move past, right? Like, you can see that he puts down the double outpost. I love this play. It's not about protecting the northern pass anymore. It's about the southern pass. It's such a longer way for Marine Lord to go that it's going to be almost impossible for him to go through and actually snipe out these fishing boats. These fishing boats that, by the way, due to their behavior upon spawning, are being really inefficient. Wasn't even an intended pun, but... so, to explain what's happening here is when you build a unit out of a fishing... out of a dock, right? The fishing boat, by default, its behavior is to return to the one it started at, unless you click it to go to a different one. It's really wonky right now. Hopefully that gets fixed soon. Explosive junk takes out one of the fishing boats. But you see what I mean, right? Unless you commit 3 or 4 of these incendiary ships, you're not getting past this point with one, courtesy of the multi-defenses. And because it's not Imperial Age tech, you're not even damaging the defenses. You can see, right, how healthy they are, the outpost and the Barbacan Sun. So, while there's no doubt that FreeDB is now safe on his island, you do have to start questioning whether he's going to expand. I think it's the same for both players, actually. Both players are still playing off of one TC, one island. And we've seen how important it is on Confluence to expand onto a second island. So I'm interested to see in the next 5 minutes who's going to make the move first. I think it's easy right now for Marine Lord to do so, courtesy of the fact that he has the raiding power and FreeDB doesn't. But FreeDB's trying to switch that up. He's moving the army in, but he needs to have an army to defend back in base. Look at this, the move in. Transport ship's going to be able to drop off successfully. And it's raiding time. And remember, he moved the military to the front. He's retreating them now, but this is going to be way too late. You're going to lose more villagers again. It's going to be a big hit. Small contingent of spearmen are here. But it's not that multiple groups he had before. And so many villagers are exposed. You can see them charging out now. No! So many villagers dead. That's another 10 down. This difference is just ridiculous. Marine Lord is almost doubling up the economy of his opponent now. And when we look at the income per minute, you can feel it, right? Like, the wood alone is insane. That's where you've taken the hardest of hits. FreeDB at least being competitive on the other fronts, but the wood factor means he won't be able to defend on sea effectively at all. Spearmen. They never complete these walls. So Fire Lancers could continue for if they want. They see no value here. They see that he's moved his lines forward. And it's almost like Marine Lord is expecting a bigger pocket of workers than he's finding. And there's only one big pocket left. It's this tree line right here. It's a hard to reach tree line, though. I don't expect that load to get sniped out. But considering what happened with the previous load of workers caught running out, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow Marine Lord sneaks in on them. Now, one detail to highlight here is that FreeDB has been prioritizing the relics. Something I don't think Marine Lord bothered to do at all. Yeah, so he only just started to try and pick up relics. So he doesn't get the lion's share, so Gold Treacle long-term is decent for FreeDB. But in the meantime, I'm concerned if he's not expanding onto new islands. Here we go. Nest of Bees now being built. He's shifted into the archers to accompany the Fire Lancers. But you still haven't got an issue of these walls, right? These walls are not quick to get through. FreeDB, 5,504. He's just not catching up unless he can do some damage directly to Marine Lord in return for all the pain he's caused him. And more boom ships. Uh-oh. Oh, it doesn't catch the explosive junk. But he should be able to trigger this explosion, so he stops the aggression. Like we said, right, the damage to FreeDB's wood lines means it's very hard to keep up this push out of not only the explosive junks, but replacing any fleet lost in terms of your fishing economy, right? It's definitely hurting him. But now, with these choke points being covered, you can see he can move out. The Nest of Bees, they're on top of him now. So Marine Lord not able to engage with them. They are the clock tower ones, so they're pretty tanky. And because he charges past, he has to engage onto the archer line that counters out the spearmen. Although he gets the Nest of Bees, he will lose a decent amount of these troops. And now that he sees the switch, it should be the moment where FreeDB mixes in a bunch of Palace Guard, because he's only got a few here so far, right? But these Palace Guard will make mincemeat of the archers, remember. And you're seeing it right here. Spearmen get involved in the mix. And Marine Lord's going to lose his army if he doesn't back away. So he's on the retreat. And remember, they move that 1.44 movement speed because he has got the Yuan Dynasty. The Yuan Dynasty, which, by the way, FreeDB has continued to neglect and ignore. And I think has he finally gone for it? Yes, he has. But it took so long, right? There was so long trying to actually compete with the Song Dynasty to get the eco count. He was never able to chase people out of his base. At least he's got past that annoying hurdle, though, because that was completely stopping him from playing this game. He was always on the defensive, always reacting, and never actually shutting down moves from Marine Lord. But now, with this superior movement speed, he can actually contest his opponent. Needs to be careful, though. Needs to brace. Tries to pull the Fire Lancers out to get rid of them first. And we'll look to re-engage them with the Palace Guard here. And it's good trades considering how many archers there are, right? Like, you're outnumbered, but you're still taking a decent chunk of Marine Lord's army with you. And that buys time for these new Palace Guard to come on in. These Palace Guard that look so juiced. 1.94 movement speed when they're charging. They're quicker than the Fire Lancers. And that's the important detail here, right? Because the armor, they don't care about the splash damage as much. Yes, they don't get the bonus damage, but they're actually able to gap close. And that's why you build Palace Guard at this stage. That's why we were talking about how effective it is if you can get to Yuan Dynasty and you build into Palace Guard. It's actually one of the most powerful moments in the game for the Chinese. And funnily enough, it's one that a lot of players have been neglecting because they always go for the Fire Lancers, right? So I'm glad to see someone is engaging with Palace Guard because I do think Palace Guard solves everything that Marine Lord is throwing at you right now. And continue to throw at you, right? He hasn't switched over still. He's not building the crossbowmen at all. A little bit of a missed trick, in my opinion, from Marine Lord. Of course, the archers, they get much more juice out of that movement speed buff compared to the crossbowmen that are naturally 0.12 slower. And also, they're more cost-effective per unit. I still would like to send the crossbowmen. But in fairness, in the current count, 3DB's not pushing out Palace Guard in like a number that immediately overwhelms you, right? Which is why Marine Lord is still holding his ground for the moment. Charge in. 3DB. Ooh, wow. One Palace Guard tanks all that AoE splash, so... Actually dodges a bullet on that. The casualties should have been much worse, but Marine Lord didn't wrap around the back there for widespread. And now, we'll just carve these Fire Lancers up. It's just so dumb. You know, like, I know HRE, they get a buff to their movement speed, but they don't have a man-at-arms that already moves at 1.38 movement speed, right? Like, despite the fact that HRE are meant to be the infantry experts, they have nothing that competes with Palace Guard, in my opinion. You can argue they can hit harder, but the mobility factor means they can never choose when they hit, right? Compared to this, like, Palace Guard are just the juiced-up armored military unit, right? The infantry unit to just outdo all other infantry units, in my opinion. All right, so expansion onto a new line out of Marine Lord. He's moved onto this island. He's starting to get on the gold veins. He does have a keep down. No similar move out of 3DB. He needs to contain his opponent here. Because his opponent is the one building Fire Lancers, if he ever wants to move on this island, he actually needs to wall here at the crossing. And even if he does that, we've already seen that Marine Lord, he loves these transport ship shenanigans, something that we actually haven't seen many players engage with on Confluence, but has proven quite effective here to allow him to shift past the defenses. Possibly for the first time in, I want to say, 22 minutes. Oh, the boom ship. Oh, no, the boom ship. Has he got explosive tech yet? No, he's researching it, so that's why he hasn't exploded it. So it doesn't kill him in the end. But I was going to say, for the first time in what feels like maybe 22 minutes, we finally see 3DB go onto Marine Lord's Island. It's been that long. It's been that constant of a pressure. But he also now matches up and catches up into the Imperial Age with his opponent. And I don't expect either of them to go beyond Yuan, by the way. Ming Dynasty, like, the concept of Grenadiers is quite nice. They're quite a cost-effective unit. The problem is you don't want to sacrifice this movement speed now. Definitely not as 3DB, and I expect Marine Lord's not going to want to sacrifice it either, just so you can kind of somewhat kite out the Palace Guard. So decap going on over here, Marine Lord looking for that extra gold treacle. 3DB still just stubbornly staying on one island. He has switched over to granary and farms now, right? So hard into that like land food economy. Understanding that most of these shorelines have been dried up. There's not many fish left here anymore. You can see how many they've picked dry at this stage. It's like a small pocket group left, and then you'll just pick apart completely, right? I think this is the only main area where you'll catch more than 4 fish lines on your screen still. And now keeps being dropped over here. So, Marine Lord, just continue to choke out, take control of the sacred sites. Yes, you can't easily achieve that victory condition, courtesy of the fact that on the Confluence, there's a sacred site on the home island. But what it does mean is you now have control of 3/4 of the map. And this is something that 3DB needs to respond to. Because the thing that we see time and time again with Confluence is when you get to that late game, it just becomes a resource slog, right? Everything starts to drain quickly. If you stay on one island and you have nothing left to actually work with, your best move in late game is like, what, Horseman, right? Horseman is not a great solution against Fire Lancers. The splash damage just destroys you, right? And because 3DB is relying heavily on Palace Guard right now, although they do not cost much, they do nonetheless cost gold at 20 per unit. FreeDB understands that he's pinned in, starts to now build into the bombards. And we are seeing a similar at Marine Lord, realizing he has to get through these stone walls. He's given way too much time, and I think that's what he's identifying, right? He's allowed FreeDB to sit comfortably behind these walls for far too long. And now he needs to teach him some real-life lessons. House guard count, really not that good for FreeDB still. Bombard. We'll get the first shot out onto Marine Lord, so now he's losing this battle. And you can see that FreeDB is keeping the walls up and healthy. Oh, nice play there to pull back the bombard in time. Fire Lance is going to reach it though, no! FreeDB! He's going to lose the bombard, and he's also going to lose the Stonewall Gate. There is no way to protect it in time, so the bombard still stands, but the walls do not. That exposes the villages and the economy now. And Marine Lord, if he wants, he can pull past the Palace Guard line and go straight into the economy. But instead, he's going to bide his time. He wants to fight FreeDB head on. No more of this shenanigans pulling into his economy line. He's going to fight in military on military. And if FreeDB ever backs away, he will wrap around the back quickly. So Archers holding their own. Second bombard incoming. 2-1 right now. Still hasn't sniped out Marine Lord's first. These villagers moving out of the gold line because he's draining himself dry so quickly. He needs every bit he can get. You can see his resource down to 284. Barely any income in comparison to Marine Lord. And Marine Lord just going to plan through with a military force done and gone. This might be done in itself. He's resorted to Spearman again, but the veteran Spearman. And he's not going to get the keep down, and it looks like that's going to be enough to force it out of him. FreeDB learning a vital lesson here. Yes, he's amazing in these early game rushes, but if he ever gets forced in the late game, you could not remain on one island if you want to beat the Lord of all Marines, Marine Lord himself.